This interview is being brought to you by teststrips.com. That's teststrips with a Z.com. Managing diabetes is your business. Making it affordable is theirs. You can turn your extra unused diabetes supplies into cash. Up to $50 per box by visiting teststripswithaz.com. All right, joining me right now, we have Matt, the Mangler Bessette. This is the first time we've actually chatted, via Skype. I know we've talked face-to-face. We did a lot of in-studio conversations, but Matt Bessette is joining me right now in what I believe is his first interview in quite some time. I could be wrong about that. Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. It is my first interview in months. It's kind of nice.
So there you go.
I had some time off. Now I get back in the interviews.
Now you're getting right back to the interview. So for those who don't know I posted on Twitter, and a lot of people were kind of shocked by the whole situation, but you had posted on Facebook a couple of weeks back that you are no longer with the UFC, and I found that kind of surprising because we've seen guys come in there and just get the doors blown off them for a few fights, and they got to stick around, and you've had two pretty close fights. I covered the debut you had in Boston. It didn't go your way. It was a very close fight, and then the fight with Steven Peterson was really close, and a lot of people had actually scored it for you. So when you had got the news that you were no longer with the UFC, were you surprised by that, or did you kind of see it coming?
Well, since, I always thank Shelby by email or phone for the opportunity, and I also thank him for considering me before we even got to the UFC. So I'm always talking to him, right, over the past several years. He gets back to me from time to time. So I thanked him for the opportunity to fight in Vegas when I fought Peterson. And he said, thanks for putting on a good show again. Appreciate it. And he's like, we'll get in touch if there's another opportunity for you. And then I reached back out to him like 3 weeks later. And I said, hey, everything's healing up nicely. I'm ready for like October time, November return. And he's like, just so you know, he's like, you might be on the chopping block amongst a ton of other people because we got to constantly bring in new faces and get rid of some people because we have a lot of people on our roster and blah, blah, blah. He's like, this is kind of how the UFC machine works, get rid of some and bring some new ones in. And I'm like, I get it. And I'm like, just so you know, I'll be ready on 24 hours notice. I'm your guy to call. And he never called me, even though I would put my name out there over and over again. And I've been in shape since, really good shape since November 1st. So just kind of happened, man. I was ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, there were some opportunities. I know you and I talked about it on Facebook Messenger about some opportunities that opened up. Was there any consideration for any of those, short notice fights, or did they just kind of not reach out to you at all at that point?
Yeah, I don't know. All of the short notice fights, they all found opponents. And they were guys on the roster already. They were guys that weren't on the roster. There was, they're just constantly trying to take in new guys at the same time as fill the spot with guys on the roster. So they never got back to me. In the 10 fights that I was like, I'll fight that guy. This guy backed out. I'll fight him. They just never really even got back to me one time. So
you ended up getting your release from the company, and I saw a post you made that USADA had sent you that email that you were no longer in the testing pool. What did that feel like? Because I know when we talked a few years back for the first time, you had talked about getting in the UFC, that you and there was a point of those conversations where you said that, I just want one shot. If I just get one fight in the UFC, I feel like I've accomplished my goal. Do you still kind of feel that way at this point, or
is there any regret from this whole thing?
No, I don't feel good. As soon as I signed the contract, Mike, I was like, I'm not going to be happy with just one fight. I'm not going to be happy with a win or a loss. It's got to be a win, and it's got to be decisive, and I got to go out and kill this guy. It was like, as soon as I signed the contract, it was back to the reality, which is I don't like losing. I don't train to lose,
Being in Boston, and I was actually in the media room, there was not one point during UFC 220 where I actually went out of the media room and went down to cage side or anything like that. But I remember during your fight, I could actually hear the crowd from inside the media room that were supporting you. There was a lot of people out there that supported you, and it was pretty amazing to see. You walking in there and stepping into the octagon for the first time and fighting in front of all those people, because you've always had this incredible fan support from all the times I've talked to you, all the times I've been to Bellator events and covered those, that you were a part of those cards as well. What was that like, just making that walk and just kind of experiencing that for the first time?
It was awesome, man. It was awesome. I used the metaphor. It was kind of like I was able to shoot lightning bolts out of my fingertips. I felt like so powerful, so confident, so powerful. It was the first time I ever entered the cage to the song that I wanted to enter the cage to, but I said I'd never walk out to that song until my first fight in the UFC. So it was pretty awesome, pretty surreal.
Yeah, it was funny talking to your opponent in the back during the media conference. He had so much respect for you. Had nothing but great things to say about you. He said you were such a tough guy. He really appreciated the fact that you stepped in and took that fight on short notice when everything kind of fell apart. But of the 2 fights you got to experience, and I know that you were on the Contender Series as well, so you kind of got like the feeling of a UFC fight week and got to experience that, so it kind of prepared you mentally for what you were going to experience on those fights. But what was your favorite memory of those 2 fights? What were some of the things that stuck out to you besides just maybe that walk to the cage in Boston? What were some of the other things that really stuck out to you during this experience?
What was really cool was signing the UFC gloves on the wall, and I think that was in Vegas. But the big anniversary wall, the 25, that big wall with all the gloves on it. I was signing my autograph, and the UFC media was taking pictures and posting that I was signing the wall. I was like, that's cool, man. That's cool. It was like 10 years ago. I was like looking up to every person that fought in the UFC, like, oh my God, they're so good. Holy shit. And then, I'm fighting there. I'm signing autographs and stuff. People I don't even know. They're like, Matt Bessette, can you sign my shirt? Can you sign my child? It was cool.
That's pretty cool. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
I know you put a poll out on social media after the release and everything. You didn't want to slow down at all. You wanted to get back in the cage. You wanted to try to jump into another organization. You put some different options out there, and from what I understand, it looks like the Professional Fighters League was the winner of all those. And obviously, what they're doing right now, there was a lot of skepticism when that was first brought in, but I thought they had a really successful year, and I thought it was one of the bright spots of 2018, bringing in that tournament, having it all work out for the best, and then giving away $1 million prizes. So, I know you've been campaigning, you've been reaching out and tagging them on Twitter, and a lot of fans are excited to potentially see you in the PFL. Has there been any conversations, anybody reached out to you to acquire of your services?
Nobody reached out to me yet.
Nothing yet?
But we have kind of reached out to them. So I don't know. We'll see. I have no answer one way or the other. So they didn't reach out to us first. We reached out to them. They're talking with us. I don't know if that's a possibility, but PFL is dope. I watched every single one of their shows. I really liked their format. Fighting twice in one night? Are you kidding me? That's right up my alley. I'll fight 5 times in one night. Back before I started fighting, Joe Lozon fought I think 3 times in one night in Mass, and I can't remember where. Maybe it was like Boxborough or Revere or something like that. It was in Mass, and for the WFL maybe, I can't remember. I'm probably saying the wrong towns and the wrong leagues and stuff, but fighting 3 times in one night, that's fucking awesome, man. That's like old school MMA stuff. And the fact that they're doing that in the tournament is really cool.
I think so too, because when there were World Series of Fighting and they were trying all these different things, there's like I talked about a little bit before, there's a lot of skepticism there, a lot of people questioning, and then when they brought in this tournament format, a lot of people were like, I don't know if it's going to work, but it really did work. Like, it was very fresh to see something like that. It all worked out. The paydays were great. It's obviously great for the fighters to have another option and have a chance to make $1 million. So, when you heard of this format, I know you're a big student of the game. You're a big fan of the sport itself, just outside of your fighting career. Were you surprised to see how successful that it was in 2018?
Absolutely not. No, people love the Bellator tournament. And when they got rid of the tournament, I know a lot of people that were like, oh, man, they got rid of the tournament. That sucks. When I fought in the tournament, they treat you like a king, man. Bellator treated you like a king. They're like, you're one of our tournament fighters. We're going to treat you well. And it was a great experience. And just to fight in a tournament like that was pretty awesome. And now the PFL's got another one coming. Even though Bellator's is gone, PFL saw the value in the tournament in the tournament for MMA, and they went with it. And I think it's working, man. I like how it's different than UFC, Bellator, Ryzen, ONE FC. Those are like the tops. All those guys are the top. But what's going to set apart and make it different? Tournament format. No other promotion has a tournament format. I like it. I'm sold.
Yeah, I'm pretty sold too after watching the first season. It was pretty fantastic and seeing all the guys win $1 million. And one of the things I'm seeing about mixed martial arts is, I grew up a big pro wrestling fan, and I'm pretty sure you were one of those guys as well. Back in the day when we were growing up and watching pro wrestling, it was all about WWE, and then there's WCW, and then WWE just kind of crushed everybody, and there's nowhere else to go. But now you're seeing it over the last few years, you're seeing guys like Cody Rhodes go off and do their own thing and making names for themselves outside of WWE. Do you see a world where the sport, and it's very infant at this point still, it seems like it's been around forever, but it's still got a lot of growth left in it. Do you see a world where, if we're not in the UFC, we could still become stars, we could still really make a career in the sport? Are you seeing that road being taken sooner rather than later?
Yeah, well, there's plenty of guys that are making money. That's for sure. The fact that you can make money off of sponsors being on TV and Bellator, that's huge. That's huge. There are guys that left the UFC because they know how much money they can make just with sponsors. I think that's huge. ONE FC, that's huge. The fact that there's so many really, really good top promotions outside the UFC, and they all offer something different with value, tells me that there's going to be guys in ONE FC that are going to be talked about as being competitive with the UFC fighters. Same thing with Bellator fighters. Same thing with PFL fighters. They're going to constantly be taking in top guys, and you're going to have ONE FC. They're going to be paying so much money that they don't want to leave to go to the UFC. So I think the UFC is still the pinnacle. I think this is what I think. I think it's still the pinnacle, but at the same time, there's a lot of value in other organizations.
I know you are coaching pretty much every local event that I've been to. I've seen your fighters there. I've seen you cornering fighters. And from what I understand, you have a lot of representation coming up in the next couple of weeks with different cards locally. So talk about some of the fighters you got coming up through Ascension, through your team that we can look forward to. I know you got a couple coming up in those Bellator cards next month.
Yeah. So Jesse Mealy is fighting this weekend, Saturday. It's a 2 p.m. show for CES.
Yep.
Kind of weird, but it's like a matinee thing. Are you going to that?
I actually wasn't, but now that the weather's going to be so terrible, I might actually go and cover that event, because I was supposed to go home and see my wife and my son because they're still back on the western part of the state. I moved to the Cape, but we can't pull my son out of school right now. So the plan was maybe I'll go cover Cage Titans. Maybe I'll go cover CES. I don't know what I'm going to do. But now that we have 2 feet of snow coming to the Berkshires,
I might actually go cover it this weekend.
I hope it's not going to snow bad in Rhode Island on Saturday. I don't like
it's Saturday night though.
Oh, so it's actually a good thing that the CES event is coming up at 2:00. So
okay, cool.
So I may go check that one out. But I know you'll be there. So Jesse's one of your fighters. Who else you got coming up?
Yeah, Jesse's out of Underdog.
Yep.
She's been a friend of mine for a long time. I'm actually managing her and helping her out.
Oh, cool.
Yep. She was with somebody else, and the guy didn't do anything. I don't even know who it was, but the guy didn't do anything for her for a while. And I was constantly coming forward with offers because people were talking to me and I was talking to them. And she's like, you know what? You're doing a lot for me. And then my manager's not doing anything. I'm like, I got you. She's like, all right. So she's on board. Alex Ballou, she's fighting for Bellator. Was it the 16th, February 16th, the one in Mohegan. Stay tuned for some news regarding that. I'm not going to say anything, but there's some news regarding that. So be on top of that.
Oh, what are you doing to me right now?
I can't say anything.
Is this have to do with you or one of your
fighters?
Alex.
Oh, for Alex. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So all right, we'll leave something to the imagination here. So, is it just an opponent switch?
I can't say it. Don't.
Come on, man.
I had to try and poke and prod a little bit. So, speaking of CES, I actually had the chance to talk to your good friend Pat Sullivan for the first time last week, and Yeah, I've never talked to Pat before. Never talked to Pat, but, obviously them going to Fight Pass is a huge thing, so I got reached out to talk to Pat, and I jumped all over it, and, Pat's a great guy. We previewed the card, and he broke everything down for us, and, immediately when I started talking to Pat, the major question I had to ask him was, what the hell was it like to be the matchmaker for Matt Bessette? Because that must have been a nightmare, but, I remember having conversations with you, when all these crazy things would happen with opponents, he always came through for you. He always found a way to make it happen. You never had a doubt that he would make it happen for you. So we talked about you for a little bit, and one of the things he said was, listen, I saw the news, Matt's not with the UFC anymore, but if he wants to do some stuff with us, obviously the door's wide open for him. Is there any interest there, maybe competing for CS?
He messaged me right away. He's like, Mangler, he's like, Mangler back to CES, exclamation. And then I was like, man, I don't know what's next, but I kind of want to fight in Japan. And he said something funny like, that's not what I was looking for. But I mean, it'd be cool to fight in Japan. I would like to fight for CES. I'd like to, I'd like to close my career out at reality fighting. It's before I started my career. My first 11 or 12 fights, minus one of them, was for reality fighting. It's with one of my best friends, Kip Kolar, and Joe Cuff. Those guys are really great guys, and I've known them for years. I even worked for Naga for a while. So if I was going to close out my career locally, it's just an option. If I was going to close out my career locally, it would probably be at Mohegan Sun for reality fighting.
I mean, you're a young man, but, you have a family now, and you're coaching, and now you're getting into the management game a little bit. So do you have kind of a time frame? And I hate asking this question, but do you have a time frame on when you want to stop competing and kind of focus on the other parts of the business, or is that still kind of open-ended for you?
I don't have a great answer for that right now. You do know that I have a child in the way, right?
I do know that. I forgot about that. I was going to talk about that as well.
We're 21 weeks pregnant right now. So, wow. Obviously my schedule's going to change a little bit. My wife's going to have to be home. So, getting a full-time consistent job that's paying weekly, not every time I fight, and having to rely on sponsors and private lessons and taking money from the Ascension account to pay myself. I would just rather a weekly paycheck. So I don't know how much longer I got fighting. I could fight 5 more times. I could fight 1 more time. I have no idea. But fucking love it. I love it. So, and my wife knows that. So she knows that fighting will always be in my heart, even if I were to have to stop at some point soon, later. I don't know. But we'll see.
You talked about kind of getting into management a little bit. Is that something you could see yourself doing more and taking on more people, or just kind of, some people that you're close to that just need a little bit of guidance? What kind of, obviously that just kind of dropped in your lap and it just kind of happened for you. Is that something you can maybe see yourself doing a little more, more than just having 1 or 2 clients? You think you could be kind of more of a full-time manager? Do you see that in your future at all?
I would do well at it.
I think so too.
Yeah, no, I'd do well at it, but I don't know if it's something I enjoy it, but I enjoy it more as a hobby, helping my friends. I work with Jesse, I work with Parker Porter, work with Carlos Candelario. Carlos is with Tyson now, Tyson Chartier. I worked with Carlos for a while, Johnny Lopez, Justin Valentin, all those pro guys. But they're all my teammates, I'd never even have gone outside of that to ask people from other teams if they need help or guidance or anything like that. I just like helping my friends out.
So it's not anything that you're actively seeking, but if people reach out to you, you're open to conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I have a ton of hookups, and I work my ass off. So anything I do, I work my ass off for. So if somebody needs help and they want to pay me a little percentage of it from the work that I put in, they're going to get a good manager.
There you go. You talked about reality, and I know you had a grappling match on their last card, which was it last weekend or 2 weekends ago? But what was that like? Did you enjoy that, getting back in Mohegan and doing your thing in there?
I did. It was a lot of fun. And Kirkor is he's a wiry dude. He's real flexible. He's got like a unique kind of jiu-jitsu game. He's got a lot of leg locks like I do. So it was fun. It was really fun. We were in some crazy positions. I did the Imanari roll that Ryan Hall did on BJ Penn, and I almost got it, and then Kirkor fell to his back and locked in a donkey guard. I don't know if you know what that is, but like donkey guard is the most obnoxious guard. It's Jeff Glover made it. Jeff Glover made it famous, but like we were like both upside down. Like he was behind me on his back, and like it was just annoying. So I ended up like sitting on his chest, and it was like, yeah, try to picture this. I ended up like sitting on his chest facing like his butt, and it was like we were there for like 2 minutes, and I'm like, Kirkor, you gotta do something, man. Nothing's happening at all. He's just kind of locked in this position. But it was a lot of fun. I think if it was a 10-minute match, there definitely would have been a finish. Even in my MMA fights, I'm not like a quick finisher. Usually it takes me a few minutes to get going, and then all of a sudden I start to pour it on. So I'm like a second round guy for the most part. So if it went like 7-8 minutes, I feel like I could have got a finish. But it was an awesome match regardless.
So in terms of like where you may go with your MMA career, I know the PFL is where the fans wanted you to see. That's something you'd be interested in. You also mentioned that fighting in Japan is something you want to do. So best case scenario, if someone were to call you right now from one of these organizations, which organization would it be? Would it be PFL? Would it be a Ryzen? Would it be a One? Like which one would you jump for first?
If I know, I would love to fight in the martial arts capital of the world in Japan, but if you're gonna offer me $1 million, man, I'm fighting for PFL. You know what I mean? I'm set for how many years? Yeah, I'll fight for the PFL.
Like I think with Ryzen, if you got a chance to do a walkout the way you wanted to do it in your style, wearing a mask, like I think you could be a lock for walkout of the year. I don't know about you, but I think you'd be right up there.
I would be loved by the Japanese fans. Loved. The Asian fans would love me. I know that for a fact. But you know, if I don't get that opportunity and I get PFL one, I'm an American fighter. I'll fight for PFL and I'll rep them hard.
There you go, man. So, I talked to you a little bit about this off air. And I'd seen posts on social media that you wanted to become a police officer, and I know Leon Davis, who you're close with, I know he just became a police officer, and I know that's something you want to do for a long time. So, is that something you're still actively pursuing? Is there any chance of that happening? Anybody reach out to you, or have you joined any kind of a camp, or what's the story with that right now?
Yep, I'm in a couple processes right now with the Manchester Police Department and the Bristol Police Department. And we own Ascension Athletics, which is directly across the street from the Bristol PD, which is great. So owning a business in the town that you'd be working for, that's always a plus, right? I have a lot of friends in the Manchester Police Department.
Do you find yourself doing a lot of work with police officers? I know obviously that is such a dangerous job at times. We've seen some like terrible things happen over the last few years, more so now than it was even in the past. But do you have a lot of police officers reaching out to you to come work with you guys? Do you hold seminars for the law enforcement to help work on different things? Because you know some of these criminals are just out of their minds, and they could get put in some really difficult situations. But we've seen these videos come out that have gone viral of police officers using jiu-jitsu and using ground games to kind of thwart off some of these attacks. Have you been working with police officers at all at your gyms?
I mean, I train a lot with several police officers. A couple of my students at Ascension are police officers. A few of my friends, not students because I am an instructor at Underdog, but it's not my gym, so they're my friends. So I just call them my friends. there are several police officers there. The thing with that is like, I got a low battery. The thing with that is they have a very specific guidelines that they have to follow for doing certain things with techniques, and they can't do a lot of what we can do to subdue and restrain somebody. So I don't know exactly what I could teach them. I could say this is what I would do, and then they could use that, but then they can only use part of it. You know what I mean?
More positional stuff.
Yeah. It's I'm told a lot of what they learn in the academy is jiu-jitsu, but it's modified stuff, because you don't want to wrench a shoulder and break an arm or something like that. You have to apply certain ways to make sure that nobody's hurt at all, or nobody's about to be hurt. You obviously can't choke somebody until they pass out for sure, but you can't choke anybody to restrain them and hold them down. Right. So I would absolutely love to do a seminar with the Bristol PD, like have as many as they want come in, do like a free seminar. But at the same time, I could give them jiu-jitsu techniques, but then they would have to make sure that it translates to the techniques that they can use.
Well, I just looked at the time. I realized we've been talking for almost a half an hour right now, but that's just what happens sometimes. We're just shooting the breeze, and nothing planned here. There's no script or anything. We're just kind of yapping it up right now. So it's always great talking to you, man. And I appreciate you taking the time and chatting and catching up a little bit. So before we get out of here, people want to reach out to you and follow you on social media, follow your gym, find your gym, find a way to contact you to do some stuff with you. How can they do so? Let the folks know, just get everything off your chest that you want to get off your chest, man.
I think it's Mangler UFC, still UFC. Like it's Mangler UFC on Instagram as well as Twitter. Matt Bessette on Facebook. Matt the Mangler Bessette is my fan page on Facebook. If I'm full of friends, Ascension Athletics CT is the name of our Instagram for the gym that I own. You can find us Ascension Athletics CT on Facebook as well.
Cool, man. Thank you for the time. It's always great catching up with you, and all the best to you. Whatever you end up doing, I know you're going to do well, and it'll be great following along for the ride. And, seeing you in the UFC and, seeing how excited you were after all these years we've been talking, to hear that crowd as you were walking the aisle in Boston, it's just one of those things that really stuck out about that night.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's been great following you along, and I can't wait to see what's next for you, because I know something special is going to happen for you, and I hope it's in Ryzen, because I just want to see that walkout, and then maybe you can get in the PFL after that. So I think if we can do both of those things, I think you'll be in good shape. So. So Mangler Nation, obviously you're very loyal. There's a big fan support for Matt Bessette. So if you want to see Matt fight in the PFL, jump on Twitter, tag PFL, tag Matt Bessette, and make that happen. Because one of the things I've learned from talking to Ray Seff over the years, they are a very fan-friendly organization, and they listen to the people and they do what the people want. So if you go out there and you fight for Matt and you really represent him and throw his name out there, I think it can really happen for him. So, and they need stars, and I think Matt being able to show his personality the way that he does, I think that could be a really good thing for PFL. So, Matt, all the best to you. Happy New Year, and thanks for the time, my friend.
Happy New Year, buddy. Thank you.